5. Raven Rock. Built near Blue Ridge Summit, Pennsylvania during the early 1950s, the Raven Rock Mountain Complex, RRMC, is a highly restricted US military site with a bunker below it, nicknamed the Underground Pentagon. Also called Site R, it was intended as a place for the American government to operate from during a nuclear war. In his book, Raven Rock, the story of the US government's secret plan to save itself while the rest of us die, the author Garrett Graff describes how the 650-acre property resembles a small city built into a hollowed-out mountain. Made up of several buildings, it has its own fire department, police department, medical facilities, a dining hall that operates 24/7, electricity plants, a ventilation system, and water reservoirs. In the event of a national catastrophe, Raven Rock would house members of the Pentagon. While there are at least 100 staff members on site at any given time, the facility is capable of housing as many as 5,000 people. Its use diminished during the 90s as the Cold War ended, but the bunker was restored to active use and expanded after former Vice President Dick Cheney went there during the 9/11 terrorist attacks on the World Trade Center. Raven Rock is part of a network of bunkers all designed for similar purposes, including the Cheyenne Mountain Operations Center, CMOC in Colorado, and the Mount Weather Emergency Operations Center in Virginia. And while its existence is publicly known, knowledge of what goes on there is totally off-limits to outsiders. Government officials have disclosed that several agencies operate out of Raven Rock, including the Defense Threat Reduction Agency, the 114th Signal Battalion, and the Defense Information Systems Agency. 4. Greenbrier Bunker. As the Cold War arms race between the United States and the Soviet Union intensified, the prospect of nuclear warfare became increasingly realistic in the minds of many. Both superpowers embarked on bunker-building frenzies in an attempt to provide both elites and civilians with safe places to go if these fears became a reality. American leaders put a lot of focus into having a safe place for the president and other high-ranking officials to go in the event of a nuclear catastrophe. They made it a top priority to ensure that the government could continue to function during a war. Construction on one such congressional bunker began under the Eisenhower administration during the late 1950s at the Greenbrier Resort in White Sulphur Springs, West Virginia. The location was chosen for its relative close proximity to Washington, D.C., and because it was far enough away to be safe if a nuclear bomb struck the nation's capital. Nestled in the foothills of the Blue Ridge Mountains, the luxury resort was a hotspot among important and wealthy people in both the private and public sectors. To prevent employees and the surrounding town of 3,000 residents from becoming suspicious, the bunker's construction was disguised as part of a new wing that was being built. However, the amount of materials arriving at the property seemed like a lot, even for an entirely new wing. Locals began to suspect that the increased activity reflected more than just an effort to accommodate the rich and famous. They grew even more skeptical when a 7,000-foot runway was built, although anyone they asked about it denied its existence. Nobody would admit to anything, and their questions went unanswered for decades. The two-level bunker sits roughly 720 feet below ground and is estimated to be at least the size of a modern-day Walmart. It's hidden in plain sight behind a door with a sign on the outside that says "Danger, High Voltage, Keep Out," and is protected by blast-proof doors that weigh as much as 28 tons. It also requires at least 50 pounds of force to open. In the event of a nuclear attack, members of Congress would first visit the decontamination room, where they'd strip, shower, and put on a fresh, clean outfit. If disaster struck, each of the bunker's 18 dormitories consisted of 60 metal bunk beds that would accommodate every member of the House and Senate, along with other important members of government. There were around 1,100 beds in total, and enough food and water for 1,000 people to last roughly 60 days. Additionally, the site housed a large hall for congressional meetings, 2 separate auditoriums, one each for the Senate and the House of Representatives, a kitchen, a 400-seat cafeteria, offices, a records room, a hospital and operating room, a pharmacy, and radio and TV communication facilities. On top of all that, there was also a modest weapon supply, a small jail, and some straitjackets, just in case. When the property's historian Bob Conti took the position in 1978, he was immediately bombarded with suspicious questions. At the time, Conti had what he thought was full access to the building's plan and details, and there was no evidence of a secret bunker. He denied that it existed not because he was hiding anything, but because he was unaware of its presence himself. Over time, Conti noticed things about Greenbrier that simply didn't make sense. For one, there were a lot of bathrooms, and most of them were designated for men. Conti also found it strange that there were about a dozen employees of a local TV company always hanging around the property. As it turned out, they were government workers in disguise who were tasked with maintaining the bunker. Washington Post journalist Ted Gupp revealed the existence of the Greenbrier Bunker in 1992 in a shocking exposé. Once its cover was blown, it was taken out of official use. Today, it's open to the public for tours. The bunker was never used for its intended purpose and remains almost exactly how it was left, complete with its original furnishings and supplies. Do you think you could live in an enclosed space underground for an uncertain amount of time, or do you think you'd go crazy? Let us know in the comments below, and if you're enjoying the video, hit that subscribe button. 3. Culpeper Switch. The Culpeper Switch was built in 1969 outside the small town of Culpeper, Virginia, and was a sprawling 135,000 square foot top-secret bunker that was designed to keep banks running in the event of a nuclear attack or war. Officially known as the Federal Reserve System's Communications and Record Center, it housed the world's largest single-floor vault with $4 billion of newly printed cash inside. To put that into perspective, that's enough US currency to replenish the money supply in the part of the country that falls east of the Mississippi River. A large portion of the cash consisted of stacks of $2 bills that were shrink-wrapped and stacked 9 feet high. The $6 million facility also had a highly advanced computer system that was capable of processing electronic transfers known as the Fedwire, ensuring that the federal bank could continue running somewhat normally if catastrophe struck. Designed to house 500 Federal Reserve employees and their families, the bunker was equipped with its own air filtration system and power generators, and was stocked with enough food and water to last for 1 month at full capacity. It only had 200 bunks, meaning people would have to take turns using the same bed and sleep in shifts, a practice known as hot bedding. The property also had a shooting range, a helipad, and cold storage for bodies in case anyone passed away while staying down there, especially in case it wasn't safe to leave and bury them elsewhere. While the bunker was never used for housing government employees during an apocalyptic scenario, the Federal Reserve did use it for routing bank transactions during the 1970s and 80s. In fact, it got its name as the Culpeper Switch because it functioned as the switching station for the Federal Reserve's electronic transfer system. Knowledge of its existence became widespread during the mid-1970s. Many Americans were highly skeptical of the idea of such a large amount of money being in the hands of a small number of people, causing them to question whether the arrangement would truly benefit society in a time of economic distress. The cash was removed from the bunker in 1988, and the Federal Reserve moved out during the early 90s. After an unsuccessful attempt to sell it on the private market, it was donated to the Library of Congress. It was later repurposed as a national archive that housed movie, TV, and music recordings, known as the National Audio-Visual Conservation Center. 2. Cheyenne Mountain Complex. Located near the Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado Springs, the Cheyenne Mountain Complex is a defensive bunker that was built during the 1950s. Situated deep within a mountain roughly 7,000 feet above sea level, the 5-acre site was originally intended as a hardened command and control center against long-range Soviet bombers. It sits beneath 2,000 feet of granite and is one of the most secure facilities in the United States. Protected by massive 25-ton blast-proof doors, the property consists of 15 three-story buildings, which are protected from earthquake or explosion-related movement by a sophisticated system of giant springs. In the event of a man-made or natural disaster, none of the buildings should move more than an inch. Capable of resisting a 30-megaton nuclear explosion from as close as 1.2 miles away, Cheyenne Mountain is the only high-altitude Department of Defense facility equipped to withstand a burst of radiation known as an electromagnetic pulse, or EMP. The complex consists of indoor and outdoor amenities, including a bunker with enough cots for most employees, suites for high-ranking personnel, fitness centers, volleyball and basketball courts, a medical facility, a store, a cafeteria, and lots of security. It's equipped with 6 generators, its own heating and cooling systems, a water supply, an escape hatch for emergencies, a diesel fuel reservoir, a communication center, and everything else it needs to run on its own for an extended period of time. If Cheyenne Mountain had to close down due to an emergency notice, employees would follow a procedure called button up. The facility contains closets filled with emergency supplies that would be used in the event of having to button up. It also had a massive water reservoir that would help the complex maintain a cool interior temperature. The facility even had its own group of firefighters who underwent highly specialized training on how to combat fires in the unique bunker. In its early years, the site functioned as a North American Aerospace Defense Command, NORAD, and United States Northern Command US Northcom Monitoring Center. It also served as a worldwide early warning system for any unwelcome presence in US and Canadian airspace, including ballistic missiles, space systems, and potential attacks by foreign aircraft. In 2008, NORAD and US Northcom headquarters were relocated to nearby Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado Springs. Today, Cheyenne Mountain operates as a landlord for various government agencies, including the Space Force and the Defense Intelligence Agency. However, it remains a protector of American and Canadian airspace and houses an air operations center, a weather support center, a national warning facility, a space control center, a combined intelligence watch center, and much more. 1. Burlington Bunker. The Burlington Bunker was built in 1955 beneath churches, homes, and cobblestone streets in the quaint English market town of Corsham. The subterranean network of limestone caves found here made it an ideal location for a top-secret shelter. Situated more than 100 feet below ground, the sprawling 35-acre site was constructed without the local population noticing. As a place that was meant for the British government to continue operating in the event of a nuclear attack, the bunker was bomb and radiation-proof, as well as poison gas-proof. It could accommodate as many as 4,000 central government employees for up to 3 months without any outside contact. The site was almost entirely self-sustaining, with 4 generators, an underground lake and water treatment plant, 12 fuel storage tanks, and a power station. If an all-out catastrophe struck, the Prime Minister, the entire Cabinet Office, and support staff would all have stayed in the Burlington Bunker. Designed for both working and living, it contained everything they needed, including kitchens, offices, supply rooms, cafeterias, sleeping quarters, and a hospital. There was also a television and radio station for broadcasting public messages in case the need arose, as well as the country's second largest phone exchange. Within the facility, employees communicated by sending messages through a pneumatic tube system. Measuring over a mile long, the bunker had over 60 miles of roads and a secret rail line connecting it to the main railway. It was more like an underground city rather than a shelter. But the Burlington Bunker was never used, and by the time it officially closed, it was overseen by just 4 Ministry of Defense employees. Its existence was finally declassified in 2004. As it sits, frozen in time, with all its original furnishings, decorations, and supplies, its future remains uncertain. Never used ovens, coffee makers, golf carts, chairs, and other fixtures and items are scattered throughout the site as it slowly decays from neglect and dampness. Many are now fighting to preserve the Burlington Bunker for its historical value, while others believe it should be repurposed and put to good use. Thanks for watching. Which of these bunkers was the most fascinating to you? Let us know in the comments and don't forget to subscribe. We'll see you next time.